Welcome everyone to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, and joining me, as always, for the first episode of 2022 is Tim.
I was trying to hold my breath the whole episode, but I guess that's not going to work out.
I mean, I would have to carry a lot of the episode, Timmy. So I'm glad. I'm glad you decided to not do that. Also, you know, I think the fans enjoy you being alive, so that's.
Oh, okay. Not according to some of the comments I read, but.
Welcome. This is a horror movie podcast. We get together, we talk about a horror film that we watched. We are starting off 2022 with a number 2. It wasn't actually the original one we picked. We were going to do something that was more interesting to, well, not more interesting, that's unfair, but something we were more excited about seeing. But we have to wait a little while before we have access to that one. So we're here to talk about
Spider-Man.
Yes, the horror movie Spider-Man Far From Home. So yes, we're here to talk about Don't Breathe 2. And of course we reviewed the first one when it came out in 2018, I want to say. That's when that happened. I have no concept of time anymore.
Do you mean when we reviewed it or when the movie came out?
Well, we reviewed it when it came out in theaters, Terry. So
I was just testing you. You passed.
Oh, good. Thank you. I passed all my tests. Can I go into town now?
What?
It was a line in the movie. Good to see Tim was paying attention.
There's a lot of lines in the movie.
So yes, so if you don't remember, Don't Breathe, the first one, was a pretty fun movie. We were both pretty into it. It was from the director of the Evil Dead reboot and featured Jane Levi again, but she was sort of this little team of thieves who were breaking into a house that was owned by a blind man played by Stephen Lang, but he turned out to be like this extremely smart and capable like psychopath, basically. It had some twists and turns. You know, most people who saw it like had a lot to say about where it went in its third act, and you know, that's
easily one of my favorite horror Thanksgiving movies.
I understand why you're making that joke. Because of turkey. So interestingly though, they announced a sequel. And
interesting.
It was interesting in this case because it's like, well, where do you go with this? Especially since you're not continuing Jane Levi's character, you're not continuing the story of the survivor. You know, because I think the obvious thing to do for a sequel is that blind man who is, and we're starting spoiler free here, but obviously this is a sequel, so we have to acknowledge that he survived the first movie. Like, that's clearly obviously a thing. Right. The obvious thing that would happen maybe in a sequel that would normally come out is that he would hunt her down perhaps and like want revenge, and it would be like, this blind man stalking her. And that, this wouldn't be an inspired idea, but you could see how you could turn that into something entertaining if you wanted to. Sure. Not that it needed a sequel. It was a perfectly fine standalone entertaining movie. But they went a different route with the sequel, shall we say. This movie is about the blind man who now has an adopted daughter who's terrible with kids' ages. I don't know.
I thought she said like 9 or 10 at some point, but maybe I'm misremembering that. Or maybe just assumed.
It can't be based on something that someone else says. But I have some I have some comments based on the age thing because there's some weirdness in this. Anyway,
okay.
But yeah, so he's like sort of he homeschools her. He tries to train her to be a badass like him, and she's kind of lonely because she has no friends her own age, and she's not allowed to really do anything. But some creepy evil men decide to do a bit of a home invasion. They're trying to kidnap her, and the blind man must, defend and protect her, and maybe she'll also use some skills that he's taught her along the way. And that's, I think that's the spoiler-free premise that I think we can give you. I would also say that it does go more places as the movie goes on. I get much like the first one, it does take some turns in its direction, which I guess you could say it's true to its lineage in that sense.
Sure.
But we'll leave it there. We'll give our spoiler-free thoughts, and then we'll warn you about spoilers before we get into them. So, Timmy, what did you think of Don't Breathe 2?
Well, thank you for asking. I wasn't super jazzed going into this one. Not that I really like the first one. And, it's one of those cases where, like you said, it's like, there really isn't any need for a sequel. It's very good on its own. And then, you don't have the director, is not coming back, which I think that's one of the big selling points is, with, the Evil Dead reboot and Don't Breathe, the director,
what is name, Tim? You're really struggling here.
It's was it is it Alvarez?
Freddy Alvarez.
Freddy, yeah. So he God,
that was like you crashing and burning slowly into a wall, stalling to try and remember his name.
But yeah, no, I mean those are two very solid movies, under his belt. So at this point I'm pretty much game for anything he does, and then if he's not returning to something, I'm immediately less interested in it. No offense to the person that they got to direct this, but I'm not really too familiar with their stuff, and I didn't really hear any bad stuff going in, but I don't think I really heard any super positive stuff.
Let me jump in just before you give your point there. The director of this film, Mr. Rodo Sayegz, I don't know how to pronounce his name. I'm sorry. This is his one and only directing credit. He was a co-writer on some things, including Don't Breathe and Evil Dead. He produced some of these things as well. He's actually listed as a producer, and he has a story by credit for the upcoming Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Interesting.
So, but he didn't direct that. He did not direct that though. Yeah. So,
and then is Alvarez involved in that too, or like I don't think he's directing it, right? Did he just produce it?
Yeah, he's got like a producer credit, I think.
Okay. All right. I mean, I'm strangely looking forward to that. From all accounts, it sounds like a train wreck. So it should be fun to talk about.
Choo.
But with so Don't Breathe 2, I'm kind of going into it. I'm not super excited, but whatever. So maybe since I did have low expectations, I was kind of surprised that I kind of enjoyed this. Like, I don't think it's great. It's certainly not as good as the first one, but I don't know. I think it's like, decent enough. I, watched it. I never really got bored. I had a fun enough time. It does feel like very kind of like trashy and sleazy, but like in, like a fun genre kind of way. Like there's definitely some over the top stuff, but I think that kind of makes it fun. And it doesn't. The first one definitely felt more horror based, but this one does feel like it's. I felt like it's more away from the horror stuff, and it's just kind of like a action revenge kind of flick to me, which is not a bad thing, but just in terms of horror. It felt more like that to me. Not to say that there weren't parts that, still kind of had that little horror twinge to it. But, and yeah, in terms of the action, though, like I thought it was pretty entertaining. And they just don't get me wrong. I like all the big nerdy comic book stuff, but it is nice to kind of just see just like a couple like regular people fighting each other and not just these like big CGI blobs going at it. So I was actually kind of getting a kick out of that, but yeah, I was surprised that I thought it was like, okay.
Interesting. No, I feel really weird about this movie. I don't understand the core choices made about the premise, because
for sure.
Well, I mean, the whole thing is like we have to. The movie tries its damnedest to make you on some level root for the bad guy from the first movie, but here's the thing: what he was doing to people and what it was revealed that he was doing to people in the first movie is so heinous that there is no redeeming of this guy. There is no rooting for this character. And they try so hard in the movie. You said it's very trashy, and it does have that trashy, sleazy feel to it. I would go as far to say it's kind of mean-spirited in places. There's a really mean-spirited kind of feel to some of it, which did stick out to me. I will say there's some okay stuff in it. There's some okay moments. The odd little, I think once it gets past the setup, because the setup, like introducing the kid and her relationship with the blind man, and kind of the build up to like the main sort of plot happening, I kind of hated most of that stuff. Once it was bad guys in the house and like the girl was sneaking around the house, and then eventually the blind man starting to like do his tactics to get around. Like that was more fun because it was like, okay, mechanically I'm having a bit of fun now because you're playing with the idea that she's been taught how to sneak around. She's using that skill. She's quite smart. She's capable. She's causing distractions and try to like sneak by and do these little things. All that stuff I think was fairly entertaining. Some of the fights and murders were pretty entertaining. So I will say this though, this movie gets absurdly stupid with a few things. Like some of the logic and like the there's just some really unbelievable things going on in this movie is all I'm going to say.
Absolutely.
Some of it is absurd, and I kind of almost wish it was just a bit schlockier just so that I could enjoy it and laugh at it for being as ridiculous as it is. But it is so mean-spirited and kind of like nasty at times that it's hard to kind of like get into that mood and vibe of it. So, yeah, I think I'm a bit more kind of middling on it than you are. You seem to have gotten a bit of... You squeezed a bit of enjoyment out of it. I think I'm a little bit more like, I could have done without this existing.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say like it's something that I needed to see. And, I mean... yeah, probably not going to watch it at any point again. But yeah, I mean, I don't think I'm that much farther off from you. I mean, I think it is. I guess the point I was trying to make is that I was surprised that like I didn't hate it, but I also didn't love it though. I'm just like, oh, that was like okay, I guess. But yeah, I wouldn't put it much more above something that's just kind of very middle of the road or average.
Yeah. I think one of the weird things is with the movie structure is that it felt really long to me because I thought it was going to be mostly just the home invasion, but then that's only kind of half the movie. So I remember checking the time at one point when that was like, it felt like it was wrapping up, and I was like, oh wait, I'm only like halfway through. Like, what is this? But it says something that it didn't feel like it was only like 40 minutes into it or whatever it was at the time. Because the movie's an hour 40, it does feel a little bit long for what it is, and that's not a long movie by any means.
No.
But I think because it gets to a lot of the main premise fairly quickly, as much as I don't like the stuff before it, I can't really argue that it takes a long time to get going because it does get there relatively early on. Because of that, it feels like we kind of like we're going through the plot, we're getting at a really reasonable pace, and it feels like where could we possibly go? And a lot of the stuff that it introduces in the back half to kind of like give it all this extra plot is like, oh, okay. Oh, that's an interesting place to go. Oh, okay. All right. That's what you do. Oh, interesting. Very interesting. Oh. Like that's very much the reaction, and some of it's quite eye rolly in places as well. So, and just how capable Stephen Lang, the blind man, is in this at times. Like some of it's just kind of fun, goofy stuff, but some of it's like the way they try and sell that he can tell someone is because he feels the ripples of water.
Yeah. I mean. I feel like you kind of got to meet it as this kind of like trashy B-level movie when they're doing like stuff like that, because yeah, it is very stupid and outrageous, but also it's like, all right, it's kind of fun. And I agree when you were saying like, you wish it was a little bit more schlocky. Like if they kind of like focused on that stuff more and amped it up, like you could have like much more fun, enjoyable, like cheesy B movie or something, but instead it does kind of take itself a little seriously, or at least it feels like it does.
Actually, Joe, it reminded me of tone wise a little bit. It kind of felt like the Texas Chainsaw remake to me in places.
Sure.
Like Detroit in this movie feels kind of like the Texas, not all of Texas, but like the town in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003.
Yeah, so I think I kind of missed that, but so yeah, because the first one took place in Detroit as well, right?
Yeah,
if I remember. So did he just not move, or like did he just move across town or something?
I think he moved to another house, but
okay.
it didn't go very far.
Because it's been a while since the first movies, and I thought it ended with him like moving or leaving or going somewhere. So I thought
Jane Levi left and went somewhere, because I think if I remember correctly, she sees on the news that no body was like discovered or something like that at the house where all the stuff went down. It's like, oh, okay, all right, so he's not dead, right?
Yeah. And it definitely does feel kind of like some post-apocalyptic like wasteland or something. Like it's just completely like no law or anything going on.
Yeah, it definitely has that. Like, it doesn't feel like it's set in the modern everyday world. It feels too miserable and desolate. And hey, I don't know if Detroit is like this bad. Maybe, but movies tell me Detroit is a shithole. Based on the first movie, It Follows, RoboCop.
I think one time I was talking to someone at work. They were talking about possibly having to do some traveling at work, and he had mentioned like having to go to Detroit, and he was just very much like, yeah, if you go, like, don't leave your hotel, like just stay inside. I was like, is it really that bad? Like, I don't know.
Well, that's the thing. Real Detroit doesn't actually have RoboCop protecting the streets, so
very true.
Chaos. It's chaos.
Yeah.
There's just lots of TV saying I buy that for $1, and all sorts of crazy things happening.
Because these blind guys running around.
Oh, I know, yeah. Because there's a moment early on when it's setting things up where like he kind of like lets the little girl, Phoenix, that's her name, go into town with do you know what, until they pointed it out later on, I didn't even realize she was like a cop, like, because it says Ranger on her jacket.
Yeah, I wasn't even completely sure about
that. But like she takes her out of town while she's doing some errands, and like the kid gets to, like, you know, go to the park with the dog, and there's not much to it. But she goes to the bathroom, and there's this scene where like the main villain like shows up in the bathroom, and he's like staring at her, and it does take some turns and stuff, so it's not exactly necessarily what it looks like in this scene. But this scene plays it as like he is a pedophile and he's stalking a victim, and I'm like, really? That's what we're doing? Like, it's already weird and like nasty enough that she's like, we're supposed to root for the evil guy from the first movie who's like her protector. Now our villain's like, I don't know, it's like, because he touches her hair and he calls her really pretty and like just all these little things, and I'm like, are you trying to be the sleaziest movie of the year? Like, because you're doing a good job of it. Like, you're really doing a good job. But yeah, so yeah, kind of a mean tone, and some of the mean stuff I can't even tell you about. Like some of the stuff on the second half of this is like super dark. So.
And something you were talking about earlier about like all the stuff in the beginning, I wasn't really into that stuff either, and I'm kind of sick of this trope of like the like survivalist parent like training their kid, and the kid's like, I just want to be normal, like, you know, it feels like very like kick-ass, even to an extent like kind of reminds me of like some Batman stuff that I'm just like, you know, more like, you know, crap in the comics, but I don't know, I'm just like kind of sick of this trope, I guess.
Yeah, it's also very on the nose with her constantly like wanting to know about her mother, and like you know, her saying, I want to go to school, I want to be normal, I want to have, you know, kids my age, and he's like, you don't know what lonely is, you've got me, and she's like, but you're not enough, and I'm like, okay, we get it, we get the dilemma, and like her longing to like have a peer group and have friends her own age and have some normal life.
Also, it kind of makes it weird, like from the first movie, like his big goal was to, you know, have someone to replace his daughter that he lost. But it's like, okay, but then when you do get a daughter, like you're not even treating her like a human being. Like they have to be like this soldier. Like, I don't know. It's kind of like, I don't know, like, why did you even want this for them?
Yeah, you know, and The thing is, obviously, there's some arcs that you could do with this, and it kind of tries to do it a little bit towards the end of the movie with, like maybe characters realizing certain things and growing in certain ways, but ultimately, it's all just a little bit. It's all just a little bit thin, and never really quite feels like it earns anything that it does. Like, in terms of like the story drama, like obviously it's going out of its way to have interesting deaths and, you know, over the top situations where Blind Man is like taking on like multiple gunmen and winning. So yeah, so I mean, it's not the worst thing ever, but it definitely feels like kind of a nasty, needless sequel that it doesn't need to exist. And it's like, I wouldn't recommend this. I'd be like, no, watch Don't Breathe, don't bother with the second one. And
I'd say only watch it like when it's streaming somewhere for free. Like I rented this for $5, which whatever is like, you know, that's not that much, but it's like, I don't know. Like I it would have been perfectly fine though just to wait for it to pop up on Netflix or Hulu at some point.
Yeah, and the fact that this is, you know, a lot of people who did see the first one, like obviously it's got a fan base and people like it, but I do remember a significant portion of people who didn't like where it went. Like they were into like the creeping around the Blind Man, but they didn't like the more darker stuff that it introduced in the
creeping around the Blind Man.
You know what I mean.
I know, it's just funny for saying it that way.
So, so if you felt like that about the first one, then don't stay away from the second one. You're just going to be miserable.
So, like, are our action stars just getting like older and older? Like, it seems like there's so many movies now about like, I don't know, like dudes in their 50s and 60s needing to get revenge.
Yeah, there's this kind of weird thing where there's not a lot of young action stars anymore, and part of it's because I think the type of stars that we're getting are very different to the ones we got in the 80s and stuff, and a lot of it is like, well, we're clinging to the ones that were in the 80s and 90s, and the newer ones that have appeared in the last decade have been people who are a bit younger than that, but they're still old, you know, like Keanu Reeves and John Wick, Liam Neeson and Taken even, and that was a while ago now, but he was already like 50 or something like that when that came out.
Oh yeah,
you know. So yeah, it's definitely like, it's almost like Hollywood. It's almost like a trope in Hollywood that a certain type of badass action hero just doesn't.
Bob Odenkirk.
Yeah, even Bob Odenkirk. Like they can't be millennial or younger. They have to be like Gen X at least, because no one younger than that can be a badass. We're all too.
Yeah. I mean, soft. No one wants an action star that's like taking a break to eat a Tide Pod or whatever.
Come on, you can do it. You could do a millennial who's got like a launcher that like fires avocados at people. You could do something with that. Why not? So. There you go. All right, so spoilers. Let's do some spoilers then. Let's talk about the plot and the things that are in the movie.
I was trying to think of like something where like a bad guy is like threatening him, like I'm gonna send like a whole army to your house, and the hero's just like, I can't afford a house.
Too true, Timmy. Too true. So. The movie starts with like a sort of tease of the backstory. And so this is obviously set sometime after the first one, because like he's got this kid, and we find out, like, and this is what confused me so much, is so later on we find out, because the main bad guy, so we're in spoilers, right? Just before I say this, we're in spoilers. The main bad guy turns out to be a real father, and he says that he went to prison for 8 years because they blamed him for the fire of their house, right? And when
it was like a meth lab, I think they said.
Yeah.
Went up.
So at the start of the movie, there's this opening where you see like the house on fire, and then like, you know, little girl Phoenix is like walking down the road. Which, by the way, this shot was weird because she was CG. I don't know if you noticed this.
I don't think I did.
Yeah, but when she like drops to her knees and falls on the ground, like this clearly CG, and then it goes into a close up and it's, you know, real. But I was like, why was that CG? Like you couldn't just get like a drone and do a shot of like her performing this. What confused me though,
all right, little girl, get near that fire.
What confused me though is that he says he went to prison for 8 years for this, but implying that this was 8 years in the past. But
yeah,
I don't know if you remember how tall she looked in that opening scene, but I did not get like 3-year-old from it, or whatever age she's meant to be.
yeah, that was something we were trying to figure out. We being my wife and I, but like, yeah, she definitely looked like somewhat old enough, and I think the big thing is that like she doesn't remember this because she thinks that the blind man is her father or whatever. But yeah, like when you see like these kind of flashback scenes or whatever, or the scenes that take place in the past, like it seems like she'd be old enough to be able to form memories and to know, like, that he's not.
Like the dad mentioned it's been 8 years, and then the blind man, like, or her not having any memories, so the blind man can lie and say that he's her father. Like that implies like she's like no more than like 2 or 3, like when he finds her. But like she looked like, to the point where honestly, until he said that 8 years line, I genuinely thought it was maybe like just a couple of years, like a year or two since he got her. And I don't know, that doesn't explain why she doesn't remember. I mean, maybe she's got amnesia. I don't know. Like maybe, who knows? But this really was. It wasn't so much confusing in the scene itself, but it was later on. I was like, wait, was she like far too old in that first scene then? Because she seemed. I mean, I don't want to say definitively she didn't look younger, because I'm sure she probably did, but it was just.
Yeah, I mean, overall the story's kind of convoluted, and like, not in a way where it's like, you can't understand what's going on, but in a way that like, I don't know, I feel like there's a couple of times where I was like, kind of like doing questions in my head, going like, oh wait, then this means that, and then okay, yeah. Like it's it's not done the best.
It doesn't take a long time to start poking holes in a lot of the premise. So we see in the news that there's like some sort of organ, like some doctor who does like illegal organ stuff, right?
Yeah. Basically, people are stealing people's organs.
Yes. So that's like, and they do kind of subvert your expectations with this a little bit, because when we see the main bad guy get into his truck with his buddies, and in the back of the truck you see like a cooler, and I thought, oh wait, are they stealing organs? And it turns out they're actually kind of related to that eventually in the movie, but it turned that cooler's just Molotov cocktails. There's nothing else in there. So it's almost like they're sort of trying to set up that they're just like looking for organs to, I guess, to throw you off the set, and that it's like a personal thing, and that there's actually a good reason for why they're targeting this kid. It's not just that he's some perv who saw a girl that he's then obsessed with. So here's the thing. There's the one decent human character in this movie, the ranger lady, who like cares about the little girl and tries to tell blind man that he needs to like loosen up on her and like give her some freedom. She gets brutally murdered in the first like 15 minutes, and really doesn't deserve the harsh strangulation that rots into her neck the way it does.
Yeah.
Just because they trick her, they kind of like make her get out of the car, and when she goes back, one of the guys has sneaked in the back seat and jumps out and strangles her. And the weird thing is that they didn't really have to kill her, like she was leaving.
Yeah, I guess this is like where some of that meanness they're talking about kind of comes in.
I mean, okay, sure, like she saw them, maybe like once all the stuff goes down at the house that they're planning on doing, maybe like they're worried she'll be able to identify them, and since she is actually law enforcement, she would probably like consider it and think about it properly. Not to mention we see her taking down her license plate number and stuff, but I mean, it felt like okay, like I thought they set her up enough that she was going to like sort of like dip in and out of the plot like as the movie went on, and maybe like she'd be like a bit of a hero later on or something, but no, she just gets brutally murdered earlier on. And then the other thing is that so the blind man's got a dog that the kid's really fond of, and the bad guys shoot the dog, and so that's a bit mean. What's weird about this though is this is actually set up to try and make us like the blind man, because one, he's really emotional when he finds his dead dog, right? Yeah. So everyone can relate to that. But later on, the bad guys have got their own dog who they like unleash into the house to run and get him. But the blind man, even when he gets him a chance to stab him, he can't do it because he likes dogs too much. So he decides to trap him instead. He doesn't kill him. He instead just like traps him in a corner. And it's like, oh, we're meant to like him now because he didn't kill the dog. Yeah. He was still, shoving turkey basters into vaginas in the last movie. or at least attempting to.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I wasn't happy to see, his dog die, but when they introduced a second dog, I was a little nervous. I was like, you can't kill two dogs in one movie. That's way too much. But I was happy that dog kind of like joins his team.
Oh yeah, I mean that's the other thing. Not only does he save the dog then like has a face turn and starts helping him. and one of the most ridiculous scenes in the movie is when like the mid breaks happened and the bad guy's got the little girl. He's revealed that he's her father. Half of his team are dead. Like Blind Man kills a lot of them like in the house, but he's taking her away. He tracks down where they've went because he just like asks the dog to go home, and he like has a leash and he's like, "Go home, boy, go home." And I'm like, "What?" Like, what? No.
Very like well behaved dog, like much more well behaved than my dog. Which like if you tried doing that with my dog, you would. Oh man, like you would go all over the place. Like you'd probably be 3 miles away from the house before.
Yeah.
Like I mean, Lord help you if there's like a squirrel or something.
Yeah, very intelligent dog, able to lead him across the city to wherever their hideout is, whatever abandoned building they've set up shop in. Like really far-fetched.
If it was like a dog that was trained since birth, like to do that, I would believe that. But I don't think these like meth dealers or whatever they are really training the dog that well.
Yeah, it doesn't make a whole. It's like just because the blind man's like sort of like tamed you a little bit, now you can do this. Like, I don't know. That make a lot of sense. So yeah, the first half of the movie is like they're coming out of the house, and whilst the blind man's out looking for his dog, like there's a period of time where it's like 3 guys in the house looking for the little girl, and I actually kind of enjoyed most of this. I would say, which was her hiding under the bed. The guy goes to check under the bed, but she's moved under the closet. Because it's one of those sort of like high-rise closets that are old-fashioned, and she like intentionally distracts them by throwing like she sets kind of a little alarm on her watch and then throws it off somewhere, and like she has a lot of smart things. She even like hangs down from the stairs at one point, and the camera's like constantly sort of sweeping around and showing like her just being missed by the guys, and it does a good job of like, okay, she's good at this, she's smart, she's just narrowly avoiding things, and this is definitely a horror movie territory, all this stuff.
Yeah, I thought this stuff was all very fun. It's very video gamey, which I say that in a good way, but like I can totally see this as being like, kind of like the opening stage of like a video game or something, where you kind of like sneaking around and you just keep seeing the bad guys missing you. But yeah, I thought this stuff was fun.
It's like Hitman Little Girl Edition.
Exactly.
Yeah. And, she almost gets out, and then but one of the guys sees her and like. It's actually a pretty decent jump scare where she's about to go out the back door and like a gunshot like just hits right next to her like on the wall. But this is of course when the blind man comes back and we actually get some combat. So they've got like a crate in the like in the basement, which is like a safe box for her to run into because it can only be open from the inside. And she runs down in there, and the blind man starts taking on some of them. He has to patch himself up at one point. Notable moments, I guess, in this section of the film is he actually glues one of the guy's mouth shut and leaves him behind. And for some reason, so this guy's like the brother of the other dude, right? So there's the dude who's got like the shaved sides, but he's got kind of like a I don't know, mullet-esque kind of thing going on. And his brother's the one that gets his mouth glued shut. And when he finds him in the garage, like garbage. But when he finds him in the garage and he's got his mouth glued shut, and his nose is as well, so he's having trouble breathing. And for some reason, the brother like grabs a screwdriver and he says, "Open your jaws, much as you can." I thought he was going to poke a hole in the glue.
100%.
Over the mouth.
That's what seems to be. That seems like that would make the most sense.
Right. He instead stabs him in the cheek to make a hole for him to breathe through. And what made it really stupid to me is that like 30 seconds later, the guy himself grabs like a blade and cuts open the mouth part of the glue. And he still, don't worry, he cuts a bit like a lip or whatever because he bleeds, but it's still the right place to cut. It's still where he's supposed to be opening.
Yeah. I'm surprised like his first words weren't just screaming at him like, "What the hell? Why'd you stab a huge hole in my cheek?" That's
because they all served in the military. They're hardcore. Like, this is what they're taught to do: stab each other in the cheek so they can breathe. Which, I mean, let's face it. I mean, obviously you do the whole stab in the neck with the pen or whatever, right? If you're needing to like get to the air pipe, but like, let's face it. The scenario where it's like the mouth and nose are closed up and the cheek would work is so minuscule in terms of how often that would actually be a valid like thing. But yeah, but his first instinct is to just drive a screwdriver through his cheeks. So
yeah, and with me, if I'm ever in that situation, just let me die. I don't want the cheek or the neck. Please, I don't want to be stabbed anywhere.
Well, I think in this particular case, wouldn't you want me to try and slice open the glue?
The glue is fine. Yeah, go for the glue.
Yeah, go
but
for the glue.
If that doesn't work, just, go hang out for a bit and just leave me be.
Go and break the news to the wife. Sorry, but I could have saved him, but he was very insistent about no stabbing of air holes. So... the big fight though that takes place is that the sort of bigger guys like try to like get her out of the box in the basement, and he's pouring water into the box, the idea that she's eventually going to have to open it so she doesn't drown. And okay, it's a smart enough idea. And he sets up like a cable as well to electrocute her at the top, so again she has to get out of the box. And it's like a metal crate though, it's not just like if it was a wooden box he'd just sort of start smashing it, obviously. But the blind man does come in and he kind of like stops him from using his gun because he like lets a propane tank or something, not propane, I don't know, it's flammable gas,
like some gas thing,
and he's like, okay, very smart, I can't use my gun now, but he tries to.
He's smarter than me. I probably would have just started firing wildly.
You'd be that Danny DeVito meme from It's Always Sunny. So anyway, I started blasting. So we have a fight scene where they're tackling, and the blind man's like listening for noises and like clanking and stuff like that to locate where he is in the room. And
it is pretty tense because like I kept worrying about the little girl in the box.
Oh sure, yeah. And that's kind of what the movie's trying to do, right? Because it's okay, it knows we're probably not going to care about the blind man very much because again they made him pretty unlikable in the last one, so it's all, it has to be about saving her. So he ends up winning this fight by throwing the electric cable that's exposed into where the gas is and setting the guy on fire with an explosion. And
it's a pretty decent explosion. He kind of hides behind this table.
Yeah, so it's really, this is where it gets a bit more action movie. It's like once he's in a room fighting people, it's an action movie. When it's just the girl being chased, it's a horror movie, pretty much.
It's a good way to put it.
Yeah. So they escape into the greenhouse, and this is where it kind of like takes a turn where the bad guy comes in and he's like, "I'm your father. Look, I've got the same grey streak in my hair." So I gotta ask a question: is this a thing?
Yeah. So I thought the same thing because I said this is very stupid. Like, what, they both dyed their hair the same way, but my wife actually, who I would say is much smarter than me, she did correct me and say,
definitely. Like I've not even met Tim's wife, but I'm pretty sure she's smarter than Tim.
And we're both smarter than you. So, but no, she did actually say that this is an actual genetic condition that people have, and like they pass it down from like father, daughter, and stuff.
Yeah, so she's got the Rogue from X-Men thing where she's got like a grey streak in her hair, and her dad has it as well. And if this is a real thing, then fair enough, that's cool. But I did go, wait, is that like a thing that you would like get and develop like that early in life?
It's still like, even knowing it's real, it seems kind of dumb.
Yeah, there's dumber things to come that are I'm pretty sure are definitely dumb. And I've already mentioned the dog that can find its way home across the city. So, yes. Obviously this is very convincing. She gets conflicted about who to trust. Blind man starts like fighting back and causing chaos. He ends up killing one of them violently in front of her, and this like she's sort of begging him to stop because it's like too much. And now she doesn't really know what she wants to do. Although she does actually stab one of the guys in the foot with a rake, which, by the way, like, so the main bad guy obviously isn't going to be happy that he like got angry and slapped her. Like, yeah, go on, slap the kid. Well, maybe he won't care given what he's actually planning to do later, but
sure, yeah.
But at the time, they're presenting it as he wants his daughter back. And maybe if the movie actually wanted to be challenging, like present the idea of like, no, like the real parents are there, and like we should question if like she should go back to her parents, but then of course it makes her parents these awful monsters that are way worse than him, which is saying something. It's saying something. So they burn his house down. There's a bit of an action sequence where he's like trying to like get out of the house when it's on fire, and he falls through some of the glass above the greenhouse.
This is when he's like he's chased up into the attic by the dog. And
yeah.
First he traps the dog, and then
lets the dog out because he doesn't want the dog to die in the fire. So again, it's trying to make you care. It's like, oh, see, look, he likes dogs. That's a quick way to your sympathy. But he survives obviously, and he gears up and he goes after with the dog leading the way, of course. But what we find out when the little girl wakes up at this like hideout, which is like I don't know, like an old theater or something. It's like a swimming pool as well. Where is this?
It was like a hotel or something.
It may be a hotel, hotel, because it has a swimming pool and it has like what looks like a function hall, with a stage. So maybe hotel sounds about right.
And I guess it's just, I mean, the whole city pretty much seems like it's abandoned.
Yes.
Like, because even when like all this stuff earlier when they showed the blind man's house, I mean I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure like he had like neighbors and stuff, but. There's all this like fighting and gunshots, and then like the house is on fire. You don't see like anyone, running around or coming out to see what's happening, or like police cars or like fire trucks or whatever. And I guess maybe that's like a statement on what's going on in the city, how bad things have gotten, I guess. But
for the record, I googled the population of Detroit. As of 2019, there are 674,000 people in Detroit.
That's a lot. That's quite a bit.
It's not a lot for like a big city, and to be fair, the photos here, which it makes me think of RoboCop or the skyscrapers, right? So it does have like a proper urban part of the city, but this movie would not have you. This movie would have you believe it's some little like abandoned town in the middle of nowhere. That's what Detroit feels like in this movie.
It's like Silent Hill or something.
And I'm sure there are quieter parts of Detroit. I'm sure it's not all like RoboCop
blind men. What if they did just make like a whole city just for blind people?
I mean, everything would have Braille on it, so I mean they'd all feel and no cars. They'd have to take away all the cars, so I mean it would make it safer, I guess.
Yeah.
It's a lot of guide dogs in one city though. Maybe all the guide dogs may start like mating,
taking over.
Yeah, repopulating.
It just becomes a city of dogs.
City of intelligent dogs.
And the thing that sucks is like, if the blind people fall in love and they hook up and they have a child, but the child's not blind, so they have to send it.
Oh, they have to send the child away.
Yeah.
This is some sort of weird, dark dystopian future you're concocting here, Timmy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the dad's like, "Hey, you're not a prisoner anymore. You're free to go." And he says that a few times, and she does go to leave. Like, she's sort of interested to hear about her name, and like she finds out her real name is Tara. Her real birthday's whatever date. But as she's leaving, and she's walking
when they
outside,
have that revelation where you like, oh, I do a podcast with Tara.
Not the same Tara, Tim. Different Tara.
If that is her real name. We don't know.
Oh, maybe it's Phoenix. Yeah, I don't know.
It could be.
Maybe Tara.
Sounds more sci-fi.
When the girls try to leave, when Phoenix is trying to leave, she gets to the door, and then it does. This is the point.
So funny.
This is where the movie jumped off a cliff in terms of me taking it remotely seriously. Is her mother, who is not dead? That was a lie from Blind Man. She comes out in an electric wheelchair, and she's all in silhouette. Yeah.
Oh, no, never mind. Sorry.
Okay. She's all in silhouette, and she wheels out, and she's like sort of like, I think she's like slowly singing a song that she used to sing to her as a baby or something like that. and it's like so overly dramatic. And she comes into the light, and she steps, the little girl steps forward and says, "Mummy," and then the dad walks and says, "Yes, he lied about everything," and like this actress is made up to look like Helena Bonham Carter, right? Because they thought to themselves, what does like the cook, not counting Breaking Bad obviously, but what does a meth cook look like who's a mother? And they go, Helena Bonham Carter, that's what she'd look like. So that's what we get Helena Bonham Carter, but not quite, in a wheelchair, sounding kind of kooky and crazy because she's a little bit like, I don't know, well, crazy because of the fire. And where this movie, this scene is ridiculous. This scene is hilariously bad on its own.
No, I was laughing so hard because it's just like, it's so like, it's played out to be so creepy. Or, I mean, at least when you watch it, it's like, oh, this is very creepy. Why is this girl not running for her life? Like, there's this, creepy done up person, like all in shadow, softly singing this song. Like,
do you know what it is, Tim? It's the old lady in Resident Evil 7, the game, like, don't tell Rhodey.
That's what it sounds
like. Go tell Rhodey. Right? That's what it reminds me of. Either that or like Freddy like singing a creepy song, walking out of the shadows. Like, it's treated like a creepy moment, but it's also her like, "Mom, you're still alive?"
Yeah. Yeah, like, I don't know, this kid is so dumb. Like, I would have been so scared and just running for your life. And then just the fact that like the parents thought like this was the way that they were gonna get her. Like, why would you not just be there to welcome her and be like, "Honey, yes, it's me, like, I'm alive"? Like, why go through this creepy theatrics? It's so weird.
Yeah, I mean, even forgetting the theatrics, like the idea that they're going to keep the mother like in their pocket so that if she doesn't agree to stay, that'll be like that's their like their trump card. Like, when she tries to leave, is like they'll bring out the mother. And I'm like, but what in what logical way do you think you have to plot this? And like, think about like the thought process of these parents. They're like, she wakes up, I'll make her feel comfortable, I'll tell her she's not a prisoner, but you shouldn't be in the room so that we can all be happily reunited and it'll hit her. No. We have to give her a chance to want to stay without knowing you're here for some reason, so that then if she does decide to leave, we can wheel you out and it'll be like, oh my god, your mother's alive, you have to stay. Like, what was the point of trying to make her like have that choice without meeting her? Like, I don't see how it affected. Yeah. I don't see how her knowing about her mother in any way affected like what their ultimate plan was with what they want to do with her later.
Yeah, I mean, once you actually find out what they want her for, like, this makes no sense, and it also just makes them seem more cruel because they're like tricking her. Yeah, when like, they could have just tied her up and like drugged her from the start.
So let's get into what their plan is here.
Okay.
So they're talking to her, they're talking about the old house and like the mother's being creepy and like, I heard you put flowers in the old house to like honor me and wish I was healthy and alive. Is that true? And it all comes across as very creepy. But
she's just kind of like, yeah.
But it turns out that they've drugged her drink and the mother's sick. She has a bad heart because when the fire happened, like all the chemicals she was cooking meth or whatever with, messed her up on the inside, and she needs a heart transplant. But she needs a heart that's like a direct relative. And we realize that the old guy who's sort of kicking about at this point is actually the doctor that the news was talking about, doing like shoddy like organ stealing and transplants and whatever else. So they're setting up a black market heart transplant. A heart, like, first of all, the idea that there's like a doctor somewhere who has the facilities, or he can just do a heart transplant without like a proper medical team and like staff and all the equipment is ridiculous in and of itself. But
yeah, I doubt Glue Mouth is going to be a good person to have on hand.
Is he the one wiping his brow as he's doing the surgery?
Right, wiping his brow with a screwdriver.
And it looks like a dirty, like, just they've got a couple of beds set up. It's this dirty curtain they've got around it. It's like, yeah, I don't want to be getting open heart surgery in a dirty room that looks like it's from a Saw movie. Like, just an idea.
Like, also, like, okay, I'm not a doctor, so I don't know.
I think I know what you're about to, because I was about to bring this up. Please do. Please.
Yeah, so I imagine there has to be some difference between, again, we don't know this girl's age, let's just say 10.
Yes.
But a 10-year-old's heart and someone in their, I'm guessing, mid to late 30s, 40s, somewhere about, like a grown adult human heart. I feel like a small little girl's heart is not going to be able to fully function and pump blood and everything like the same way an adult's organs would.
Yes, that was my big thing here as well, is that it just won't fit. Like, do you have to put little extenders on it? And will the heart grow properly like it's supposed to? I mean, this is assuming the heart changes size. But for all I know, maybe the heart doesn't change size, Tim. Maybe your heart's always the same size. Although that doesn't make sense, because if you think of it as a baby. Yeah.
No, I think, I mean, you know what it actually kind of reminds me of is I read through, I think, all of the Chuck Dixon, Scott McDaniel run of Nightwing last year, and there's like this whole arc with I'm sure you know who Blockbuster is.
Oh, of course,
that crime boss.
But Big Desmond.
There's like, yeah, so there's a whole arc with him where like his heart is failing, and he keeps getting these heart transplants and they won't take, so he has to steal a heart from one of the gorillas from Gorilla City.
Okay, yeah, but you know, wacky DC universe.
Yeah,
and then
yeah, it's a little more believable.
Yeah,
in that
gritty, like
Detroit.
whatever this is. Yeah, gritty Detroit.
Although I do think Cyborg is from Detroit, if I remember correctly.
Oh yes, yeah, like this. I'm fairly certain. Yes, that there's if you're getting a heart transplant, there's some rules as to, I don't know, being full size. Maybe I'll buy that. Yes, you need like a direct relative. It has to be like a really perfect fit. Although I would have thought the same blood type would maybe be enough.
Yeah.
But whatever. But yeah, so sure, but like surely you have to wait till she's at least 18 so that it's like fully grown and like going to fit properly and all the rest of it. And this is assuming that black market doctor can just, you know, do hearts, like a heart transplant, you know, in the back room of some creepy old abandoned building, which I am very skeptical on in and of itself.
Yeah. So
yeah, absurd. And but one of the bad guys, so one of the henchmen is like, this ain't right, what they're doing in there's wrong, and this is all just set up so that later on he'll like choose not to attack the old man or the blind man and be like, hey, they're about to like, they're going to kill her, so ladder's behind you, go and save her.
He's a criminal with the heart of gold.
Yes, and he still has his heart.
Yeah.
Which notably, this is an important detail in this movie.
Yes.
Because this movie, that's actually, you know what, this movie does have no heart. Like, that's what it's lacking. It's lacking a bit of heart. Like, see if they made me care about the little girl a bit more properly at the start of the movie, that might have done a lot for this.
Well, I mean, I think the big thing would, you know, is if you compare it to the first movie, which, you know, there was also a little bit in the first movie of like, well, who do we root for? Because, you know, these people are breaking in and robbing a, you know, blind person's house. But, you know, like Jane Levi and, yeah, I forget, like, you know, the other actors that were in that, but like, you know, that kind of guy that like had a crush on her or whatever, like, you know, they're very likable and charming actors, and you do get invested in their story.
And she was, if I remember correctly, she was like doing this to help her little sister who, you know, there was like a noble goal like behind it to an extent.
Yeah, so, you know, even if like, you know, the beginning of that, what they're doing is kind of wrong, like you quickly kind of see like, oh, the blind guy is a monster, and then halfway through the movie it's like, oh yeah, he's really a monster. Like this, they're trying, you know, it's like very over the top of like, okay, yeah, like don't you want to root for him now because these people are like so like, you know, cartoon evil villain kind of people, but you know, you never really get away from like accepting the blind guy as like being like, I don't know, very wholesome, or like, I mean, you don't want these organ people on like, you know, you definitely don't want them to succeed, but yeah, it is kind of a weird thing, like who you're rooting for.
Yeah. Mashup Halloween costume idea, Timmy.
Okay.
You mix Blind Man with Freddy Krueger, so you've got a glove with like the 4 turkey Mister.
Oh, okay. I was wondering where you're going with that, but all right, I like that.
There you go. It'd actually be quite easy because if you've got a beard, you just get like a white vest and get a turkey pasty, fill it with some white liquid, and you're good to go. Just walk around with that.
It's not bad.
I'm the blind man. So yeah, the old man, blind man. I keep calling him old man, but blind man comes in.
He's old too.
And he turns off the power, which is smart. You know, they're animals, man. How could they cut the power? But he comes in and he kills one guy down the basement when he goes to check the power. A Smollett guy, actually, I think it is. And he actually does it in a fun way where he throws like a little bell into his mouth, so it's stuck in his throat. So when he runs for the gun, he can hear him like jingling. so he knows where to throw his hammer, and he hits him in the head. I mean, it made me laugh. So you know, fair play on that kill. And then that's when we get like his big trap where he's filled the basement with a little bit of water so that he can hear he can feel the ripples. He plays dead, and they all step into the barring the one who's going to help him. They all step in the water, and he can feel the individual ripples from all three people, so that he can just sit up and like shoot them all in the head, like boom, boom, boom. And this is like where it's like, okay, you're taking this. His superpowers as a blind man are like this is straight up Daredevil shit, yeah. But this is not meant to have any superpowers in it, so yeah. So you know,
but like at the same time, it's like it's really dumb and cheesy, but I do kind of wish there was more of this in the movie, because if it did have a little bit more of that over the topness to it, that it would be more entertaining.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Probably my funniest part of the movie is coming up, where they've realised the blind man's in the building and stuff's going down, so they're trying to escape. So you've got they're off the operating table, and that was the thing. Like, just to add extra cruelty, is that they were going to have to do the operation with her awake, and she was going to like die with her chest cut open because I don't have the equipment to like keep the heart fresh, so we have to like take her out of it while she's still breathing. She has to be awake. Like, what the hell? Jesus. This is like just like absolutely cruel as shit. But they're escaping, and the exit's like, well, at least the exit they're going to is like at the end of the swimming pool. So they're in the swimming pool, and the swimming pool's not full; it's empty. And the doctor tries to run away, and the blind man kills him. And then it's like, okay, the bad guy's smart enough to shoot out some boards. It's morning now, so all the light from dawn starts like filling the room. He's like, okay, that's smart enough on his part. He's making sure they're not in darkness, because that's where the blind man has an advantage. But the blind man like releases a bunch of smoke, so now it's like, okay, now it's obscuring his vision, so we get a lot of like the blind man creeping around in all this like yellow lit smoke, and it's got some visuals, whatever.
Yeah, I thought it looked cool.
But my favorite part of this is that whilst he's trying to shoot the blind man, he fires off a bunch of shots, and then when the smoke clears, he realizes he's accidentally shot his wife, who he's been trying to save. And for the record,
the irony.
Not only is he trying to save his wife, who he loves, clearly much more than his daughter, she's also the cook for their meth business, and that's why like all the henchmen are like, yeah, we need to do this. Like, this is how we make our money. She's the cook. So she's sitting there dead, and the little girl Phoenix is handcuffed to her hand. Here's my favorite bit in the whole movie. The dead body of the mother leans forward, like sort of slouches forward, and hits the controls for the wheelchair. It starts to move forward with the little girl attached to her wrist with handcuffs. It's heading for the big empty swimming pool that's, you know, a good like 20 feet deep or something. I don't know, it's like quite a deep swimming pool. And we get a scene where, so that's like, honestly, the funniest part is the setup where she's like rolling towards it, and I'm like, this is stupid. This is so stupid. And then we get the scene where she's like dangling off the edge of the swimming pool, and like the little girl's wrist. I feel like the little girl's wrist should be like bleeding at this point because of the weight of this woman like dangling from
it. I don't think she would have been able to hang on.
Yeah. But she's able to hang on, she's able to grab a machete, and she hacks off her dead mother's arm so she doesn't fall into the pool. And then she falls in anyway, but she lands on her dead mother, so she's okay, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know why, but like for a second, like she grabs the machete, and I think my mind like this is a dumber choice, but for some reason my mind was like, oh, she's gonna like cut the handcuffs, like, the little chain on the handcuffs or whatever. But yeah, then she just goes right for her arm. I was like, oh no, yeah, that makes more sense.
I was like, that was a dumb thought you had, but it was not as dumb as mine, where I thought, wait, is she going to pull a saw and cut off her wrist? And I'm like, oh no, she'll cut off her dead mother's wrist. That makes more sense.
Yeah. It'd be so funny if she did that and then she was like, oh crap, I could have just
I could have cut the dead person's wrist who doesn't need the wrist anymore. Yeah, so blind man like stabs out bad guy's eyes with his thumbs. He's like, you'll see what I see, and he thumbs him. He's like, I got you by the thumbs, boy. And then
pulls Jason.
Yeah, blind man comes back in.
Oh no, I'm sorry, Michael Myers.
Blind man comes in and says to Phoenix, I can't, you can't be with me, I'm a monster. And this is where it tries to kind of acknowledge that he is not a good guy, and it's like, okay, sure, but he's like, I'm a monster, you shouldn't be with me, leave now, I'm bad for you. And but after she leaves, the bad guy like, stabs him from behind or whatever. Does he stab him? Or shoots him.
He's a I think he was about to, like, I don't know, like slit his throat or something like that. Which I guess the bad guy seems to have gotten used to being blind pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's almost like he's now capable as like a functioning blind badass, like the old man.
He got the blind superpower. So as soon as you go blind, you just instantly like get powers. So
he's already stabbed him, I think, and then he's about to slit his throat, and then that's when the machete comes through his chest, and it's from the angle you can tell it's coming from the little girl. And then she's there, so it's like she has actually eventually killed someone. Like, she has become a killer. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was a pretty good justifiable murder as they go. But so, and then she holds the blind man as he's dying in her arms, and she cries. And the end of the movie is that she goes to this little, I think, orphanage that she kind of like. She at the start of the movie when she was at the park, she was watching these kids play on the roundabout, the merry-go-round, whatever you call it, and she has like a little fantasy moment where she's like, hey, do you want to do something cool? Because one of the kids has got like a little motorbike. It's like, and she's like, basically shows them, if you put the wheel up against the merry-go-round, it'll make it spin, and it'll be a fun thing. And then she like snaps back to reality, and she's like, she's just imagining impressing them and having fun with them. So she goes to this place at the end, and she finally talks to them and says, hey, room for one more. And she's like, yeah, I think there's room for one more. Like, what's your name? And it pauses. And this is where, like, honestly, the Rise of Skywalker comparison is not completely invalid, because it does pause, like, oh, she's going to pick the name that he gave her, not Tara. She's going to pick Phoenix. And sure enough, she says, my name is Phoenix. Boom, cut to title. Like, it thinks we care. It thinks we care so much that it cuts to title like it's, I don't know, any movie that does that, any movie that cuts to the title like very quickly, as if it's like, boom, like RoboCop, like, speaking of Detroit, that's how RoboCop ends. In fact, it's exactly how RoboCop ends. I think, but RoboCop ends with him saying, "My name is Murphy." That's the whole point, is that he's got his humanity back. And obviously, the story's not the same, but the idea being that he says his name, that he's it's like, this is who I am at the end, and then boom, RoboCop. This was Boom, Don't Breathe 2. Not as effective, not as iconic, dare I say. So,
and then, did you watch through the credits?
I did see the mid-credit scene that just to tease that he could still be alive. Yeah, maybe.
Don't Breathe 3. Who knows? Maybe just he'll be back. Yeah. I don't know. This was all kind of cheesy in the end here.
Yeah. It kind of felt like it was almost bordering on a different movie. With the way it ended and the tone of its ending, and then the idea that he died in her arms, like, what are they going to do in the next movie? Like, pretend that he faked his death in her arms just so she would leave and never come back?
Yeah, I guess so.
And then we can have Don't Breathe 3 if this made money. I don't know if it did, because this came out in August, when, like, it was exclusively, and I can see it in the poster right now on IMDb, exclusively in movie theaters. Like, like, was this really going to be the movie that people like went back to the movie theaters for? I didn't.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing is maybe like, I mean, I doubt it had a huge budget, so maybe even if it didn't make a ton of money, maybe it was somewhat successful. But yeah, I mean, if they do another one, I can't imagine it being that big, or maybe it'll be like straight to Tubi or something.
Straight to Tubi. I know Stephen Lang's bagels on set. Like the budget must be high for it. He loves bagels, I hear. So it's just,
does he?
Just tables and tables of bagels.
Okay.
Tables of bagels. That rhymes. That should be a name of a store. It's a bagel place. Tables with bagels.
Ugh, I hate bagels.
Donuts
so much better.
Are you always disappointed it's not a donut?
Yeah, I am, because like sometimes, I mean, I don't really work in an office anymore, but there would be times when I go in the office and someone would come in and they'd be like, "Hey guys, guess what? Like I got breakfast," and you'd be like, "Oh yeah, it was great. What'd you get? Like some donuts or something?" They're like, "Nah, I got some bagels," and it's like, "Okay, great. This sucks."
I mean, I don't dislike bagels. I think bagels are a perfectly fine version of a sandwich to have, but if I think it's for a second a donut and it turns out to be a bagel, I'm going to be disappointed.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, of course.
If I see it in the distance and I think I'm seeing a donut, and I'm like, oh god, I want donuts now.
I would literally rather starve to death than eat a bagel.
Oh dear. Anything you'd like to add about Don't Breathe 2?
No, I mean, we covered it.
Oh.
And yeah, I mean, like, probably kind of negative going through it, but again, like, it's fine enough. Like, it wasn't like a chore to watch. It did definitely feel a little long, even though it's not a super long movie. Like, I feel like this type of movie just get it down to like an even 90 minutes, but it wasn't horrible. There's enough entertaining parts.
I would say the first 10 or 15 minutes are kind of a chore, because it did kind of feel like it was just doing a lot of things that I just really didn't like, and it felt kind of mean. Once the actual movie kicks off proper though, and we get, the horror and action sequences, at least stuff is happening that's relatively entertaining to a point. Some of it's stupid, some of it's silly, but at least when it's been stupid or silly, there's something to react to and talk about. And some of it, like we said, like when the mother was revealed to be alive and the way they introduced her, and then what the plan was, and then the mother like dead body dragging the little girl to the edge of the swimming pool, like all of that was hilarious, like laugh out loud hilarious. So I just wish it was more consistently funny, because I think I'd probably recommend this as a fun bad sequel if it was just let into that a bit more. It was a bit more schlocky, but
I agree. Yeah.
As it is, the mean tone kind of, I don't know, clashes with the good vibes a little bit, but
the good vibes.
The good vibes, yeah, it's the good vibes. So yes, so there you go. What are you going to rate Don't Breathe 2?
So I think I'm going to give it a 5.5. Just it just squeaks above, like, being straight down the middle between good and bad. To me, it's just kind of like, it's okay. It could have been worse. There was enough entertaining parts. Like you kind of just said, the parts that were more cheesy or dumb or over the top are fun, but it's not consistently there throughout the movie. So I can't really recommend it as like a fun cheesy B movie over the top kind of thing. But there's enough kind of sleazy stuff there that makes it not the worst watch in the world. And and I, when they are doing like action and stuff, like, I mean, maybe I just don't watch so many action movies and stuff, but it did feel kind of nice, like actually seeing people do actiony stuff. So yeah, 5.5 for me.
I could go with a straight 5. I've said my piece really. I think I'll just add on the final point here, is that between the
Peacemaker,
the turkey. The turkey baster with semen to impregnate a woman, and then now the heart transplant in the black market with a child's heart. I feel like this franchise, if you want to even call it that, like this franchise's legacy now to me is like exponentially going up in terms of how ridiculous the medical procedures are that are attempted in the movies, because they both have one. So what's the third movie going to be? Is someone going to try and, like, I don't know, replace their brain with a dog's brain to see if it makes them smart. I don't know. Like, I have no idea, but like of all the things that I expected them to try and like sort of up the ante on, like do the same but up the ante, I did not expect extremely surreal medical procedure that would never work to be the thing on that list. But
again, it's funny that like they're trying to be like, all right, so how do we make him like a good guy? Like, I guess we make the bad guys people that want to steal little girls' organs. Like,
yeah, I know. Like the bad guys will kill dogs. He won't, and ultimately her own parents want to steal her heart, and he's going to save her. So we have to root for him to some extent.
Also, is this like the luckiest guy in the world where like all he wanted was a daughter, and then one day he was just like driving by or just walking by this like burning house? I was like, hey, little girl.
Well, I think that was one of the thoughts I had in the first one, is like, you're going through all this effort to impregnate someone. I guess he wants it to be his kid, but like, surely kidnapping an orphan or something would just be an easier time. Like, like couples who try to have kids sometimes just can't get pregnant, and you're trying to just shove it in with a with an implement.
And also, I forget if they mentioned this, but did they ever say like how they knew the daughter was alive? Because like they're like specifically going after her.
Well, they didn't. It just so happened that the dad was at their house when she was. Because remember, she went at the house at the start of the movie that she lived in to drop off the flowers. Later on, when he was explaining that he was her dad, there was a little flashback that showed him like stepping out of the shadows. He just saw her there.
That's right. Yeah.
And then he followed her. So. So it's
that burnt up meth lab, is very sentimental to everyone in the family.
And it's kind of lucky that they needed a direct relative to steal a heart from, and then he couldn't believe his luck when he ran into his long lost daughter. All right.
Wait. So then, wait.
All right. Come on.
Okay. So then, because so then Phoenix, she acts like surprised when she finds out the blind man isn't her father, right?
Yes, she thought that was his father. That was her father. Yes. But
she knows that she's connected to this burnt. Like, what? Why is she going to this burnt house and leaving flowers then? Like.
Oh, because he claims that was the house he shared with her mother, and her mother is dead. So he claims that he's her real father, but her mother is,
This is so convoluted. It's like, all right.
Okay. All right. Well, there you go. That's Don't Breathe 2 and the books. We've got a lot of 2021 movies we want to get through that are of varying interest, so look forward to more. This is probably one of the ones that I was least looking forward to, so hopefully the other ones that I am looking forward to are going to impress me, and I'm going to like them. That'd be nice. It'd be very nice.
That would be nice.
Yes. And of course the bonus movies on Patreon are back starting this month of January. That'll be a bonus episode a month, and we should mention that there's a new thing on Patreon called Even More Streams, which is a non-movie review version of the show where we will. I mean, the first episode ended up being quite long, and it was us going through like a bunch of stuff coming out this year. Typically, it'll be a sort of shorter thing, maybe about half the length or so of a regular episode, where we just kind of chat about the random horror movies that we've seen, not for the show, so not full reviews, but kind of sharing like mini kind of reviews of just random things we've watched. But there might be episodes that focus on specific topics or specific news that might break, and that'll be available over at Patreon. But the first episode will go out for everyone after this episode, so probably next week, I imagine, on YouTube. But the rest of the episodes will be exclusive to Patreon. So if you want to support us over there, patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. Little as $1 per month, and we will be using the bonus movies for the time being to also help get through some 2021 movies. So normally in the past we make them the sort of the weird schlocky absurd B movies, and we will get back to that someday when we're back to like regular weekly episodes. But for the time being, whilst Tim's child is not quite big enough to give him a heart transplant, we're on every other week for regular episodes. And we have these Patreon things back. That was a weird sentence. We know what I meant. Okay, so yes, go to Patreon and have a look and see if you're interested in supporting all the content and keeping Screams After Midnight and everything else coming, including the Atomic Cinema Experiment, which is a science fiction movie podcast that I do with Tara, who was not delighted to hear some of the things that Tim had to say in the Even More Streams episode 1.
Interesting. Okay.
The exact message I think I received when she listened to the episode was, "Is Tim trying to start a beef?" Was the...
Was she like love Gary Doberman or something?
So, yes. Not that I'm trying to stoke any drama in, but yes. She's also taken umbrage with maybe some of the things you've said about a certain Star Trek franchise in the past. Are you really going to deny you've not said negative things about Star Trek?
Well, you're saying like a certain Star Trek franchise. I mean, all Star Trek is bad. I don't know, like, I don't know. I was trying to think, like, did I make fun of a specific one? Or, I mean, it's all horrible.
I meant certain franchise, and then I was just being colourful with my language. I meant a certain franchise, and that franchise is Star Trek.
Yeah, Star Trek, no good.
Well, there you go. Thank you very much.
The best things in space are like Star Wars, then Leprechaun.
Well, oh, come on, now. Come on. What sort of shit is this? I can't cope with this. But 2022 is off to a terrible start. So let us know what you think of Don't Breathe 2 in the comments. You can, of course, support us as well by liking, subscribing, dinging the bell for notifications, all those usual things on YouTube, or giving us a 5-star review on iTunes, wherever you get your podcast from. So please do all those things. They help us out a bunch. But that is us. So hopefully we'll see you next time. Keep watching scary movies. And don't... I got nothing. I don't know. I put myself in a corner. Tim.
Don't breathe? I don't know.